Welcome to another way to think about it, where real conversations replace right answers. Where Lynn and Cynthia, longtime friends, exploring life's messy questions with humor and heart. Today's episode, we're going to interview my longtime good friend Catherine Moore, who is a ghostwriter, writer, and y'all, there's so much more to this woman. She's amazing. She has 15 years plus experience in manuscript development for memoir, self help, YA, and fiction books. She's been a ghostwriter for 15 plus years, 15 plus books, excuse me. Motivated and skilled to work one on one with authors. She's much more than that. And I want to make sure that we uh, give you a peek into just a little bit about what it means to be a ghostwriter from Kat's perspective and what it is that she does. Because Cynthia and I, when we were having an informal conversation with her last week, found out, I think you did too, Cynthia, that we found out that Kat brought a lot more to it than just being a writer. So
Absolutely, yeah, it's fascinating. I mean, the whole
without further ado, hi, Kat.
"Hi, cat. Hi, honey." Are you having a good day so far?
Yeah, yeah, I am. I am.
Yeah? Okay, so when you are with a client, when you're present with a client, how do you know, the client is really ready and that opens up to you? How does that work? Do you ask certain questions? What is that format when you're initially introducing them?
Well, a lot of times it depends on the subject matter, and if it's somebody like if I've done, like, tech bro, like, how they became famous. I've done,
Big
really
egos, right?
yeah, a lot of big egos, and, the ones that where it has to click are the
Yeah.
ones that I sort of have put into my box that I call sort of trauma memoirs, how people have experienced, like, severe trauma either in the military or in life or sexual trauma, violence, and how they've gotten over that. That's where my connection is really, really important. For the ones that are just like what I call my bread and butter, the ones that how I became famous ones, celebrity memoirs, if you will,
Yeah.
that we have to like each other. We have to have a modicum of respect for one another. But the ones where I really need to make that connection of trust are the trauma memoirs.
And so for you, Kat, when someone hands you their life story and says, "Tell this for me," what do
Yeah.
you feel first as a human, not as a writer?
Well, first of all, they don't hand me their life story. I have to solicit it
Yeah,
always.
that's true.
Oh,
And it's a process depending on sort of what the story is and what we wanna tell. It can take me 3 months of development or it can take me 6 months of development. And that's with a fiction book as well, because their story in the fiction book it always has a life of its own as well. And
mm,
so that question process that I've come up with and I sort of have a template from 17 years of doing this of like, okay, I know it's going to be this kind of story. I need to develop the narrative this way. We come up with an outline and then I ask questions around that
that
outline.
out.
And we
Okay.
have basically an interview process that's very similar. And I've been told this thousands of times, like therapy,
Yeah, yeah.
especially with the trauma memoirs, even with the how did I become famous? Because, a lot of times if you're sitting with somebody who is, famous in their world for whatever they're famous for. It could be a famous cowboy. It could be, the biggest lobbyist in Texas for oil and gas, whatever they're famous for. Nobody if you follow that person or that person is famous in your world, you already know they're famous. You wanna have a connection to them on what you see yourself in that person. So you
Mhm,
have to humanize that person and get them down to a human level and tell their story. That's why everybody goes into their childhoods because we all had a childhood. And so how do you like, if you're reading a story about, I don't know, Angelina Jolie and you're like, "God, she's so beautiful and she's done all these things." Well, she has I'm making this up, I don't know this, but she had this real fucked up relationship with her aunt or whatever it is. That needs to be in the story because that's gonna make connections to your readers because we all have that, you know? So I'm always
So
looking for those sort of nuggets.
how in
that's
the hell do you
amazing.
establish that trust, Kat? Because I mean, I bet you that I wonder if your experience has been that a lot of people don't realize it's gonna go there, even though they're asking you to do a memoir.
Yeah, especially the big egos. They're like, "Yeah, I was commissioned to do this book. I have 20 million followers on Instagram and they want me to write a book and blah blah blah." And I get sent to people and I'll say, "Girl, that's great." Like, "Okay, great. You have 20 million followers or whatever you have. That's wonderful. I'm so proud of you. But who are you?"
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
what people like to talk about themselves, and you just have to ask the
Absolutely.
little questions and give them the time and the space. And I think the I don't know how you develop trust. I mean, I really don't know the answer to that question, but
Mhm.
I think you just can't
How do
sit in
you know
judgment.
it? How do you feel it in your gut, Kat? How do you feel it when it's happening? Do you feel it in your body?
Um, I can tell you when I don't feel it.
Okay,
Like,
that's cool.
yeah, I mean, I usually, I mean, I've done 22, 23 books now, and there's 4 or 5 that came to publication and I saw them through. I didn't walk away from them that I was like, "Ugh." I don't feel good about my relationship with this client or this person or whatever it was, the subject matter. But I saw it through because that was my job. And it was always because there was an element of untruth.
Ah,
And I knew in my gut that they were not ready to tell the truth around a certain subject, or they had a
yeah.
big reason to lie, or whatever the reason was. And like I said, 4 out of 22 is not bad, you
Yeah,
know?
No.
that's really interesting, don't you think, Cynthia?
Absolutely, because that was one of my questions, similar questions. Is like, if somebody doesn't wanna open up to you, you're asking them a particular pointed question so you can further along the story, so to speak, then what do you do? Do you have to let them go? You do. So,
I've walked away. Yeah, I've walked away from projects for sure.
yeah,
And
and
if I was doing this for the money, I wouldn't walk away from it. And I would have an agent and I would do all the and I've done the celebrity stuff, of course, but I'd be in a different echelon in a different ball game. But I'm not going to sell myself out like that. And I'm not going to sell them out like that, and that's what I tell them. I just don't think you're ready to tell the truth. It
Yeah,
doesn't mean
those
it's not telling the truth. It just means you're not ready. And that's why I say it's like therapy. Because you go, if you have a problem and you go and talk to a therapist, it probably takes you about, I don't know, 2 months, 3 months to really get to the core issue if you're really looking to solve the problem. And that therapist has to get into those layers that you've built to defend yourself from whatever you're hiding from.
right, but I'm very, very fascinated. How do you, when you're writing the story for them, how do you protect your, let's say, your emotional boundaries, while being immersed into somebody
good
else's life?
question. Good
That's a get
question.
It's hard for me. I would say this, like, the 2 that come to mind that have really gotten through my armor are, one was like, I had a child, and at the time I have a child, but at the time I was writing the book, my daughter was the same age as this client who had suffered a sexual trauma.
Oh,
So I was so just on tender hooks around protecting my child from that. And that was a very hard book for me to write because it was almost like I would come home from these intense interviews and then see my baby, who was the same age as my client
right.
was when this had happened to her, and it was just like, "Oh god." And then the other one was, a survivor of, a bombing in Afghanistan, and he had lost his legs, and he had all these, like, physical traumas, which I've suffered too in my life, so that was very hard for me because I have to almost, like, and I wish I could be a therapist. Like, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would probably be a therapist because
Yeah,
basically what I do is therapy. And
yeah.
there's so many, like, workshops on memoir writing and how it helps you and it solves your problems. And, there's been a lot of things that are written about that. And I think there's a professor at UT. I went and sat in on some of his classes, and he has a book about it as well. That just sort of like writing down the bones of any of yourself and your problem, it just releases it, you know?
Well,
And
that's interesting, Kat. Because I'm curious about, how kind of folding into the questions that we asked previously, how does somebody get prepared for this? I mean, if somebody's like half-assed, disassociated coming to you to write a memoir and then they get into this and it's like, "Whoa." I mean, do you have any prep stuff
If
that you
it's
s
if it's a trauma memoir,
Ah,
my in my contract, you have to sign up to say that you've done therapy around this issue and that
yeah,
acknowledges I'm not a therapist and that I have to build a narrative around a subject matter. And in building that narrative, I will be asking very intimate questions because we have to tell the story, right?
yeah, yeah,
So if it is a trauma-based memoir, that is in my contract that the client has to specify that they have already been to professionals for this particular problem and that they have quote unquote worked through it before they write the book because so much comes up when we do write the book because we go back to the originating sort of incident, the igniting incident for the story, and we have to structure and we have to build around it, and they have to have been able to have done that work. I can tell you not all of them have, and
yeah,
that's always been hard for me
mm,
because I wanna help them,
yeah.
and I don't necessarily have the tools to do that because 'cause I'm not a trained therapist.
And so have you ever had it happen where somebody gets really into this and they feel very vulnerable and exposed and they're like, "Okay, I don't wanna publish this."
Hmm.
One time that's happened. One time. Yeah.
I could see me getting chickened out, before I did a lot of work on myself. That would have terrified me, you know? But, in what you were talking about, Kat, it seems like would you ever be willing if a reputable, therapist wanted to do a workshop and have you come in and help them do it with the memoir writing?
Oh, yeah, I mean, I've gone to the prisons, and I've done that, and I've worked with
That's cool.
people and I've done books for therapists.
Very
And
cool.
that's been very helpful for me to have, especially because they're friends. I mean, every single one of my clients, with no exception, is a friend now because it's a very intimate process. Even if we're telling a book
Yeah.
of fiction, even if I'm editing or helping you write your YA, they become my friend because it's such an intimate, I'm picking your brain. I'm
Yeah.
saying, why did you write it this way? Why did you make this decision? Like, so you become a confidant. And I can't say that I would ever like go into the therapist's office and work within a group, but I've done memoir writing in the prisons.
But you
And the
could do
interesting
that.
thing about that, that was really hard. And I don't think I could ever do that again because every single one had been a victim of sexual trauma in
Yeah,
their
of
life.
course. Yeah.
Mm, that's
And
n
that's
Well,
hard, that's
yeah,
really hard.
yeah. Why do you think people feel like a deep need to be witnessed through their story?
That's a
All
good question.
Well, I mean, we are storytellers. That's how we connect as humans,
Yeah.
and if you think about before the printing press, when the sort of traveling circus came to town, or the minstrels, or the traveling, storytellers, the guys that got up on the back of their old wagons and made a stage and told stories of the puppeteers. That's what Shakespeare, all of his plays were based on things that had been traveling around Europe in the back of minstrels' wagons for hundreds of years. And those are stories, and we need people to witness our story. I think that's a big part of our humanity.
Yeah,
Agree.
yeah,
I
yeah,
agree.
yeah,
I mean,
substance of
there's a
some
reason
sort.
memoir is the best-selling. I mean, it's always the best-selling, whether it's celebrity or not, it's the best movies people make,
I
because
love reading memoirs. Love
oh,
them.
yeah, everybody does.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Everybody
yeah. That's cool. I love that. So, I'm when I was thinking about doing my memoir, I mean, remember being dissed by a family member and told, "What do you have to talk about that other people would wanna, listen to or read?" And I'm like, you
Yeah.
know? But I've read enough memoirs of people that weren't famous that, actually who was that girl, the Glass Castle girl, Cat?
Oh, Jeanette,
Oh,
I can't remember her last name, but yeah, that's yeah, she's just a normal lady whose mom happened to be homeless and crazy, and yeah, it's intriguing, you know, that we
Well,
all live quiet lives of desperation, all of us, and when we find
Yeah.
that connection, that, I'm just, yeah, just, I'm just a mom or I'm just a this, and you're never just that, you're never just that.
Cynthia came up with a good question when we were looking at what we could ask you about. I love this one, Sin. What emotional weight do ghostwriters carry that people rarely discuss?
Yeah, that one is interesting. 'Cause you have to carry because you care. You're writing somebody else, you're
Yeah.
validating somebody else's existence, so to speak.
Well,
So
that's a twofold question. It's
mm,
what emotional weight does it carry for me in order to do my job, to be a good ghostwriter and, tell the best story I can for my client is I really have to learn to not sit in judgment.
Ah,
they
yeah,
And
me
come
too.
that's a lesson that's ongoing, I mean, it's very, very hard not to sit from this sort of like throne of, I'm here and you did this wrong or what. It's so because if you do that, that comes out in the writing and I have to be in their voice. So
Yeah, and it clouds the space probably because you know how judgments are. They're actually judgments are fucking dark,
yeah,
if you think about it, and we
yeah.
all do it, but they put they just put a wedge in any kind of connection, anyway to people. So,
And then the
yeah.
flip side of that is, and I'm struggling with this now. It's like I'm so I love what I do. I mean, I really do. I love what I do. But in the same vein, it's like I never get any recognition and I am a writer, So from a very personal perspective, it's like sometimes, especially when a book does well, I'm just like, ah, and I can't say it because almost all my stuff is NDA. So it's like, it's like, and I have a lot of, you know, like, you
Very
changed that.
famous people, I'll say it. She's
Yeah,
had some
you
very
changed that, or you
well-respected
didn't tell
famous
that
people.
the right way because 'cause they'll go into edits without me, and they'll
Yeah,
sit with
yeah.
the editors at the publishing houses, and it's a game. The publishing game is one of the biggest games in the world, and they're gonna do anything to a book to make it sell or to make it
Yeah,
marketable, and what does the
yeah.
market want, and what is it, and they'll beef up a part of it, they'll take out a part of it, and my job is to get them a manuscript so they can take it to the publisher. That's my job, and then I hate the publishing business because it's grotesque, and I just can't be in it because I judge
Yeah,
it, speaking of judgment, because it's
yeah.
not truthful and it's not honest, and what I do is based on truth and honesty and no judgment.
It's
Mm.
amazing that any decent book or movie ever gets created when we
It's
get
now I mean, now they're saying it's like 15 to 20 years to bring something to market because there's so many people with
What?
yeah, with their hands in the pockets of stuff.
Well, do you actually take it to the publishers, like, well, the manuscript,
No, the
or
client
do
comes to me. The client comes to me.
they come to you, but then you got the finished
I have
manuscript,
the finished
whatever,
product
and then
they usually give it to their agent
okay,
or they
okay,
give it to their PR people, and then
and
the
you're
PR people take it to whomever is going to publish it.
and
And I
then
will
the nightmare of unconscious people begins. Ah,
and
how
I've
can
had
we
to, I've had like probably like 8 to 10 of my clients go, "I want you to make sure they don't bastardize my story."
Ooh, I'd like that.
So
So
I
what do
have to
you
go in and
do?
be my client. I have to be the advocate for my client. And I'm
yeah.
not nice, and I'm not in that business, and you don't have to employ me, so I don't give a shit. So I will say things at tables that, like,
Yeah.
where you're being
By the way, I forgot to say that Kat is a lawyer, and, she also I'm proud of this too, Kat. She got a full 4-year scholarship for basketball for the University of Alabama, so she's
back in
a
the
bad
day when girls didn't get I was a big Title IX girl, so,
she
um
she is not somebody to be messed with.
but that's the thing, like, I don't have the only job I have is to represent my client or to write for my client or to be the voice of
Yeah.
my client. And that's sort of the reputation, I guess, that I have, especially the ones that are like, I don't want to change it. I don't want to change this word. That's what we said. That's how we talked. Especially my like big, like I call him my like big ego Texas politician or rich politician or rich guys you don't know that are running the things behind the scenes, and
Yep,
they
yep.
write their books and they're not changing a thing. But they don't want to sit at the tables anymore. They want to go be with their grandkids at their millionth lake house, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
And I get to advocate and I don't have to worry about anybody because I don't care, you know? I don't
yeah.
care.
That's so
It's nice.
amazing.
That's one of the privileges of getting older, may I say.
Yes.
Another question that Cynthia came up with that I love is there a difference between factual truth and
Ooh,
emotional truth in ghostwriting?
yeah,
Well, I mean, we have to be you have to be very careful when you talk about other people and other people's lives. If it's
Yeah.
their life and their emotional truth, then you can
Yeah.
say what they say because that's their life and their emotional truth. But if we're talking about especially if there's like an incident and, legally speaking, there's ways that we have to write in order so we don't, bring anybody else to the table in sort of a criminal
right.
proceeding or they have a window to open up criminal negligence are you or your I mean, we all have a First Amendment right, but you still have to say the memoir from your emotional truth. So when there are times where I have to delve into sort of factual instances, I'll pull police reports, I'll um
Ooh.
I'll get witness statements, I'll call cops if they were involved, I'll call witnesses if they were involved. And most of the time my clients already approached the people and said, "I'm writing a book. This person's gonna call you," so it's not like I'm coming in an adversarial way at all, um,
Mhm.
which is nice. But
That
it
would be fascinating. Wow.
but you can tell, there's a really good way, like, if I have an emotional truth and we have siblings and we have families, like, you can remember an incident from your childhood, but it's from your lens. And then your brother or your sister can see it, and it's from an entirely different lens
Totally
because
different.
they were over here
That's
behind the scenes looking at it from this direction.
yes.
So, I always have to go with my client because it's my client's story.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. So, if every book is a mirror, what do ghostwriters end up seeing about humanity?
And we
Yeah.
all have a story.
Eh,
That we all have a
right?
story. We all have a story, and we all wanna be heard, and we all need to be heard, you know?
Yeah.
Not necessarily by the whole world, but, we need to have our truth recognized in some way, shape, or form.
So, Kat, has it been your experience, like, if you get somebody that may be from a very different political, religious, whatever place, and you talk to them where you see where it boinks you in a way where you're like, huh, I'm seeing things differently, or I don't know. I want it to be a good thing. I want you to, when you're talking to somebody, and you get into the human aspect of it, recognizing that we're really just all human underneath all this
We
crap, right?
and that's the thing, like, we all wanna love our families. We all want if we have children, we want our children to be safe and to be educated. We want the people in our lives to be safe, and we
Right.
want to be taken care of,
Loved
and we want to
and
be loved,
loved.
and that knows
Right.
no political or cultural it knows no boundary, and that's what you have to focus on when you're the ghostwriter, and yes, I have had clients that I have been like, wow, okay. All right. You see it from that perspective. And okay, that I get it. And
Yeah.
and if I go back in time and I ask those sort of questions that build that narrative structure, their worldview or political view or way that they see dominating the economic force that they're dominating is justified, you
Wow.
know? So and I
That's a
can't
good
argue with that, you know?
No, no.
that
So
would be a great book in itself.
Yeah.
Lynn's your cheerleader,
Taking
and I'm
that
right behind her.
yeah, taking that framework of what you're seeing and that justification of the person and really exploring that. And I would want to go interview professors and scientists that are in that social realm and everything else and getting different pieces of information because for some of us, I think that would educate the hell out of us about I would hope that it would give us, the ability to pause, and the ability to take a deep breath, and the ability to listen to each other, and just, have expanded awareness of the impact of everything on us, because of the social fucking mess we're in right now,
We've
from my
always been in a social mess.
I know.
I love you for saying that. It's not like this is a little more intense of a time, but
No,
we're
it
always there. This is
I
not
mean,
our true
I
home,
say
so
this
to
all the
speak.
time. Henry VIII, just treat Wolf Hall. It was fucked up, you know?
Yeah,
Nothing has fucking changed. But what
Yeah,
hasn't changed is that we are human and we have a story to tell and we want people to hear our story.
yeah.
And the thing that we have stopped learning how to do is listen
right, that's right,
and
that's right.
listen without judgment.
That's right. Well, I think the Native American elders, from my experience with that, people do listen, their circles do listen and they
Yeah.
pass on the wisdom, but we just don't have that interspersed in society as a whole, which I would love if we did.
Well,
Mm.
we barely even smile at each other when we're walking down the street or wherever, if we just smiled even. I know that humanity aspect, we're kind of fucking losing it. But we're trying to bring it back just a teeny bit.
Yeah, I
Hey,
it's I mean, if we
get
just turn off the noise and we just talk to
yeah.
each other and we build community where we're face to face and we're not in judgment and we are just listening to each other's humanity and each other's story and we stop being told what we're supposed to think, I think it would be a totally different world. And there
Beautifully
is, I mean, there's
said.
communities where you go into, like, I'm doing a book right now for a real famous guy who lives out in LaGrange, and he goes to the coffee shop. I meet him at the coffee shop every Wednesday with his buddies, you know, and he's very, 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 very rich man, very powerful, very interesting story. And he sits there with the guy who, sells the John Deere equipment and they're best friends, you know?
I love that simplicity. Right,
And that's
right.
great, and I love those guys, and they're all kinda different in the way they see each other, but they're all real worried about their grandkids being on the goddamn phones, and it's great, and they're
Yeah,
at the coffee shop, and they're having a chat, and these old guys playing chess, and you're like, "Wow, this is" you know, it's not what we're being told is what I
yeah,
see. 'Cause when
yeah.
I sit down with I mean, my very first client, when I you met her, you remember Anna Rosenberg from Britain, the
Oh,
black lady?
yes, yeah,
Incredible fucking story. Incredible fucking story, and how she didn't go to prison is beyond me because her
Mm.
life was unbelievably abusive what happened to her, and it's just a testament to her human will and her human connection, and she's my kind of I mean, it was my first project, so obviously, I was real tender and I didn't know what I was doing, like we all like our very first time,
Yes.
and she's like my daughter's second grandmother now, but she is so horrified by how people have lost their ability to talk to each other, and all they see is what, they're being force fed on their fucking phones to see, and
yeah.
she's
I
upset. I mean, she's in her 70s now, and she's sort of, like, got some health issues and can't really leave, but she used to be all over North Bristol and knew everybody, like, she started the
Yeah.
homeless community and, like,
you know that she and I are connected on Facebook, Kat.
I love Anna. I love she's Nana Anna. She's my daughter's other grandmother. I mean, she's
Anna.
fantastic. But,
Yeah,
those kind of people are out there, and they're what we need to look at and focus and celebrate, and those people that don't see I mean, she was doing, like, homeless meals and stuff for women in hijabs, and she didn't know anything about the Muslim faith, and she was just like, "They're homeless, they need my help,"
Yeah.
and it's interesting because she still doesn't see what the news is telling her about this horrible problem. She's just like, "They're just people who need help, and we just
yeah,
need to focus on that." And I
yeah,
always think about her, I was like, "God, if she can get over the issues in our life that she had, we can all get over our issues and
And
see each
I'm
other for who we are."
I love your humanity on all of this, and I'm really fascinated by what attracted you to even start. I know you're a writer. That's your
Yeah. Well, I didn't have a
thing.
job. I moved to Britain. I married my husband who's British, and I had been living in Mexico. And then I came back to America and got my old job back. I was a mass tort lawyer for the Breast Implant Settlement Fund. And
Oh,
I had to have some surgeries and I ended up going to visit some friends and I met my husband and I was like, I'm just gonna marry this guy and move to Britain with no plan, as you do.
that's
And
right.
we lived outside of Bristol in the countryside, and, my best friend from Mexico, who's also a writer, she got approached by this Channel 4 documentary team and said, "Hey, we're doing this documentary on this woman in Bristol who started this homeless organization, and she needs to write a book because we're gonna put her on the circuit," and they made some money off her, and, Radio 4 did a whole series. And Anna didn't wanna do it because most writers have huge egos and they want their own work to be in the world with their own name on it, and I couldn't work legally. I can say this now because I don't live in Britain.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
and so they were like, "Well, do you wanna do it? And we'll just pay Anna," and Anna gave me the money because it was ghostwriting, so who was gonna know? And
Anyway, right.
and so I interviewed her and I watched some YouTube videos and I kind of read some books on how to write a memoir. I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I had an MFA, but it was like, that's for creative writing, that it doesn't teach you how to narratively structure a memoir. I just went out into the library and got a fuck ton of really good memoirs and read them and was like, oh, they did it this way and they did it this way. And I sort of came up with a plan and then interviewed her and wrote the book, and then she went on the scene, and there was, like, a Radio 4 series for her, and then this independent publishing company in Britain sort of published it for her under the universe of Channel 4, and then the BBC picked it up, and then from there, once I got my citizenship or my immigration status, I got my, indefinite leave to remain, then I was
Mm.
allowed to work, and once I was allowed to work, then this publishing house hired me to write all these sort of B celebrity books, and that's how I got into it.
And 2 things, I think I have her book somewhere here in my, house, and also I somewhere in the ethernet from my Blog Talk Radio interviews, I interviewed Anna on
You
her book.
did. Yeah, when she came to visit.
So, but Cindy Hughes thought well enough about you, my friend, to
She
refer people
did.
to you.
Yeah,
Cindy is
that was
from
not an NDA. I can talk about that book, and that was very
yeah.
interesting because you know and this happens a lot with my clients that wanna write a fiction book, especially if they're a little bit older and they're like it's literally the story of everything that happened to them in their life, but they wanna make it fiction for whatever reason, and I'm like, "Well, this is kinda your memoir," like,
Yeah.
you have all these tangents from your life coming in from all these different directions, and you're like, "Okay, let's make it fiction." Like, I'm like, "You sure you don't wanna make it a memoir?" But this
Look,
particular client did not wanna make it a memoir. He wanted it to be in this particular way, and it was a lot. It was a lot. It was like I told people it was like a Mexican telenovela where you have, like, a million different people coming in from all different rooms, and he killed so and so, and he's done this, and she's back from the dead, like, it was like that. And he was
oh,
like, "Marry all of
yeah.
these storylines
Oh,
together," and I was like, "Okay, alright, let's do this."
we'll pull that together. Well, like in the big scheme of things in Kat's life doing what you've been doing, what is the most transformative thing that it's brought to you and has changed your life, you know?
That's a really good question.
Because you obviously
I mean
care about people.
there's so many people that I've met from all different walks of life, but, um, I think when you're faced with, like, severe trauma, like when
Mm.
like, no legs or no legs and no arms or whatever it is, and you're on your own and there's no help coming, you are the person you've been waiting for. Meeting those people and seeing what they've done with their life has transformed me to be like, "Yeah, okay, so I didn't get paid last week. like, fuck it, like, I still have my arms and legs,
Yeah.
like, that has
Perspective.
yeah, I mean, everything is and it's really put like, especially the military survivors that have survived, like, horrific attacks and
Mm.
horrific things our country has done to them and left them in the fucking dust to just marinate in their own horror. That and not to be angry about that and to still be proud Americans and to still be who they are has transformed me to be like, "It's all relative," you know? So, yeah,
Yeah.
I would think those particular stories have really made me see things differently.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Lane, do you have any other questions? Or
Now,
Kat, do you have anything you wanna say? Sorry, Lane, hang on one second.
So anything I wanna say? I think
Yeah.
everybody should tell their story, especially in this day and age, like, so many like, you can go on YouTube, you can use an AI program is why I'm losing a lot of work right now, but it's coming back to me because everybody needs a good editor. But, I think you need to tell our we need to tell our stories. We need storytelling nights. We need essay nights. We need, you know, checkers day. We need coffee days in little shitty towns. We need to still keep our humanity and our connection, and I think that's telling our stories.
Oh my god, Lane, this is beautiful.
there's
My
2
mind's clicking off right now, just
yeah. There's 2 questions, that I wanted to make sure we asked you. One was, what permission do you wish more people would give themselves before they ever try to tell their story?
To live their life first. I've had a lot of people come because financially it was very viable for them at that moment in time because they were popping or whatever for whatever reason in the zeitgeist, and they're not mature enough yet to own their own story.
They're
Oh.
half-baked?
They haven't lived enough. Yeah, they haven't been
And
enough.
there's not necessarily an age to it, and I don't wanna say you have to be 40 or you have to be 50 or whatever it is. You need to have lived a life and a life of sort of, like, learning what grief is, learning what trauma is, learning what loss is, and dealing with that in a adult I don't wanna use the word adult, in a manner in which you've overcome.
A
Okay,
little
and
bit of
here's
maturity.
another one. If you could speak directly to someone listening, who's carrying a story they never told, what would you want them to know?
Yeah.
If somebody was listening to us and have a story that they've
I wanna
never
put it out there. Right. What do
I
they
think ab
do? Where
I
do
think
they
about
go?
this all the time because, my dad was in a dementia care home. And he lived a long time because when he went in, he was super healthy, and normally you get, like, 3 years, he got 5.5, and there's so many stories of especially older people, they
Mm.
have amazing stories. They have
I know.
amazing things that they have overcome, and one of the things I always used to think about is, like, a friend of mine out in, San Francisco started a thing where you can ask a question once a week, and then the older person writes it down, and then they bind it up, and they make it a book. It's not really a book, it's like a question and answer session that they bind. But I think that's a really beautiful thing for people to do, especially in, unfortunately, in old folks' homes or in just to be able to, like, put I mean, if I could, like, do something and give back, I would go to, like, retirement communities and start a program where I would implement going in and let people that are in those programs tell their stories.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Kat, this reminds me, y'all, I have to tell this. When I had my really bad car wreck when I drove off an overpass and I was in the hospital forever, one of the friends of mine then, Debbie Maxon, her family owned a nursing home. And they told the little old ladies and men in the nursing home about me and all the stuff I'd gone through because there was a bunch of different weird connections that happened from the policeman that found me to everything.
Mm.
And I got all these beautiful letters from every one of those people. Oh, honey, just loving letters. There was wisdom letters. There was cookie recipes. There was just pure love. It just was so I just loved it. I
And then my
loved it.
That
favorite Instagram account that I've ever followed, and he just passed away and his wife passed away, was this older couple. They started it when they were in their 80s during COVID, and they were British, and they would just she would, like, knit, and he would talk about how much he loved Pauline, and he would show what she knitted, and it would be
oh.
like a tea cozy, and he would be like, "I'm planting my spring bulbs, but my knees are bad." I mean, and I just it was like, we have done such a disservice to our elders.
I love you for saying that.
And I
Y
I just wish people like everybody's like, "Oh, she's young, she's beautiful, she's this." She doesn't know fucking shit about life. She's a fucking Instagram model. She's a
Oh.
dumbass. No offense.
It's true. That's true. Now you got it inspired in me. Lynn, we're going into old folks' homes.
Okay.
Why
Well,
Not
not?
I'm
here
just kidding.
here's the thing,
But
it's the
why
ener
not? Why don't you go into some of these places and talk to these people? They have
Well,
real life fucking wisdom, you know?
yeah, yeah. And our own selves that are aging as well. Look
Yeah.
at your story, Kat. Lynn, I mean, one day I'm gonna interview your ass and we're gonna have this. And Kat will be back here. No, I'm just kidding. But you know what I mean? And it's so rich. And my story too.
but you
Anyway,
know what?
We
And what I
all
wanna
have one. We
and
all have
and
one.
here's the thing about humanity, it's not just linear, it's not just youth and age, it's about integrating everything so that we don't have to be separate, so that it melds together in a great knitted fabric of humanity, right?
yeah,
Well, I
yeah.
think
And
we've done
our
a huge disservice in America by shuttling off everybody over 55 into a retirement community. We would not have anything for them. They're not part of the societies. They're not I mean, it used to be your grandparents lived with you, and it was
Yeah.
hard, it was difficult, but
yeah.
you had that sort of
But they didn't
generational.
live that long, so they'd be gone.
Holy well,
But
that's
that's
true.
what I loved about being in Mexico is, like, I'd go to my students' houses and I would sit with and grandma would be there and grandpa would be there, and they would just be in the corner and being silly and, "Oh, she snuck a beer," and it was hilarious, and then she would sing a funny song. I mean, it was in every home.
Oh my
They
lord.
that's what how they lived, and same in India, same in
Yeah,
India.
yeah, yeah.
And we don't do that, and we have lost I think that is one of our biggest tragedies. I
I
really
do
Well,
do.
I agree.
yeah, I know our
But my
society and
mom is never
I tell you.
living with me.
Well, your mom,
My mom's nuts.
Well, my mom won't because she doesn't wanna see me
and
on somebody, so
she doesn't wanna
you
see
don't have to worry
anybody,
about that.
Lynn. She
You know
loves
what?
you,
I
but
wonder though, how we can, in our work, Kat, in your work as a ghostwriter, in our work, how we can start, what kind of healing can we offer? By the way, I think it's hilarious that 55-year-olds seem like punk ass chumps to me now because I'm way beyond that. But I mean, how can we, start bringing,
yes,
you
chump.
know, healing, but just by who we are and how we're being in our world,
Mm,
instead of laying it on the shoulders of them or somebody else out there. How
I
can
well,
just
we
you just
grow?
meet everybody where they are, personally and in every intention and way that you can when you are face to face with them.
yeah, and I think no, I'm not gonna say it. Never
No,
mind.
go.
I wanted to say, there's just from what I'm witnessing, there's just younger people, they're a little more, acting entitled, "Give this to me," stuff like that, and I'm like, "Okay, that was different from mine." But every generation has their shiitake, their shit
Yeah,
that
that's
they
true.
they they throw forward and all of that. So, but I've noticed that just a little bit, just even
Yeah.
in young
Well,
people that are
Tim,
around.
think about our generation. We children should be seen and not heard.
Yeah, it's kinda like that, especially women. Damn, I had all brothers, and I was just, like, fighting like hell to, "Hello, I'm right here," you know?
Well,
Oh,
I
I'm
got locked out of the
sorry.
house
Oh, baby.
Why?
because my mom didn't wanna take care of me and my brother in the summer times. She used to put sandwiches out on the back porch, and we'd drink out of the hose and run around the fucking neighborhood like feral children. We're Gen X, baby.
Feral kids on the loose. Oh,
Yeah.
cat. This has been so great, guys. I wanted to just wrap this up as well for all of us. Thank you so much for being on here. This
Oh,
was
yeah,
a
you're
lot of
welcome.
fun and
Nobody has
fascinating.
ever asked me those questions before, ever.
Good.
Those are really
Lane,
good
we got it.
questions.
You. But if this, for everybody out there that's had an opportunity to listen to, if this episode gave you another way to think about ghostwriting in your unique story, hit subscribe right down there. I think it's right there in my finger doing it. Okay.
Hit
Right
like and
down there.
subscribe, baby. Like and
Yeah.
subscribe.
And
Pay it
yeah,
forward.
that's right. And
And
join
if
us.
anybody is interested in Cat, email us and we'll get
Absolutely.
your
Yeah,
we'll get
I'm to be a ghost, you have to be a ghost.
A ghost.
And I don't have an agent anymore because I'm not paying somebody 33% to send me work when I can do it by word of
Yourself.
mouth. I'm
Thing
definitely
is,
word of mouth. That's how I work.
well,
Because
this is
as we said, it's so intimate. It's so
well,
intimate what I do.
I'm
and we're
grateful I'm
yeah.
grateful you're out there doing it, Cat. Really.
I think humanity needs this intimacy a little more, like, oh, real shit. Couldn't imagine? Anyway, thank
Good
you,
stuff.
thank you, thank you.
Okay.
right.
Thank you
All
guys.
right, bye guys. Bye.
Bye.